Hello, hi, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Captain Eduardo Chua, a Director of Auxiliary Squadron of Philippine Coast Guard Auxiliary, and also co-director of Professor Boyet from Philippine Numismatic Antiquarian Society. Anyway, when you say the Philippine Antiquarian Numismatic, we're talking about a collection or coins and paper monies. It was built since 1929. Actually, this is the oldest group collectors in the Philippines, acknowledged by late President Ferdinand Marcos and also Corazon Aquino, because they are our members too. Our group are called by Central Bank to grade their collection for the Money Museum. It was categorized by BU for the coins, which means brilliant uncirculated, uncirculated, almost uncirculated, extra fines, and so on. And also, the rarity one have also categorized from R1 to R10. This means rare 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But my portion is what our collection, and to be as a collector, we are also limit to the coins. And what about the antiquities? When we found the item antiques, though, it changed my point of view. Naikwento na po ni Professor Boyet yung yung aming discoveries. So, ang kwento naman namin ngayon ay yung regarding sa aming discoveries ay yung aming kuro-kuro kung paano o ano ang naganap yung mga nakaraang siglo sa kasaysayan ng madlang Pilipino at kung ano pa ang posibleng makikita at paano natayo ang tinatawag na ancient megacities. Ma'am.
Thanks. Captain, kasi when we first discovered the walls, and all the different structures, when we visited them, we learned of them, ancient cities from many different countries, we studied them. Of course, the megalithic builders, we took away and we just looked for civilizations that used rammed earth technologies. It was the Phoenicians who were credited to having imported rammed earth technologies to the civilizations along the Mediterranean Sea, like Carthage, who passed it on to the Romans, and Hannibal used rammed earth to make fortifications. France made buildings with it. Spain made walls. Some Egyptian cities used rammed earth technologies, but actually, it was in China that we found which one? Right? This one? Okay, good. It was in China that we found the oldest use of making rock-hard structures from manually compacting soil, sand, and other materials. So we felt that the structures were made from rammed earth, from manually compacting the soil, a very ancient process, no? And China was a perfect match in the Liangzhu culture, which was from the Hemudu culture described by Dr. Lim. The Liangzhu culture originated from there, and they lived in the Yangtze River area, Delta area. And, they were the closest match. What did they do? They built massive rammed earth walls. They augmented their rivers and streams with water and waterways, with walls. Yun rin po nahanap natin. Yung mga may Kawayan River, yung mga Balagtas River, lahat sila may walls. Not only the rivers, the creeks then had walls that were several meters high. And they built rammed earth platforms for ritual altars, elite graves, palatial mounds, including straight elevated areas for their homes. They even built large mounds made from imported sand. But not only did the structures match, but also the DNA. Because these people the Liangzhu culture communities that are called the Liangzhu culture communities were matched in 2007 by DNA samples. They took DNA samples from the graves and they studied the Liangzhu culture that remains, that revealed high frequencies of haplogroup O1 Y-DNA. This haplogroup O1 Y-DNA is not present in inland populations. That means going inside China, there is no haplogroup O1 Y-DNA too much. It's just, it didn't spread inland. And genetically, these people were not Chinese. In fact, they were linked to the Austronesians. Because it is the Austronesians who has this high haplogroup O1 Y-DNA. Actually, not only the Austronesians, even the Tai-Kadai speakers. So the Austronesians and the Tai-Kadai. And it appears they did not migrate by land. Around 2250 BC, the people that they call Liangzhu culture, they just call it Liangzhu culture because that's the area where they found these communities. No, it's just the area of Liangzhu. They disappeared. After they built the biggest city, the artist illustration a while ago, they built the biggest walled city of that age in China. After they built it all together, suddenly they just disappeared. Around 2250 BC, it looks like they packed up and left. They left the lower Yangtze River area, and then the absence of inland DNA implies that they traveled by the waters, migrating as a group and taking with them everything they needed to start over with their culture intact, carrying implications of their advanced maritime technologies in shipbuilding and navigation. So we can see that, no? And then, actually, what the Liangzhu culture is really known for is their advanced Jade culture. And this picture is by Professor Gary Lee Todd, and he's a professor in China. And he's a history professor, and he's been emailing with me because he's been very interested in the discoveries that we've been discovering here. And he said, even the discoveries of the walled structures, and even the Jade culture here. The Liangzhu culture is most known. The Liangzhu culture, which has been linked to the Austronesian and Tai-Kadai cultures now, the speaking cultures, which has been, is most known for their sophisticated Jade culture that, excelled both in quality and quantity. Around 2250 BC, they left the lower Yangtze River area of China, taking away with them every jade working tool. Before they left, they seemed to have mined. They mined the nephrite jade from the Ningxiao Plain and other ancient sources, almost to exhaustion. It was like they wanted to take the jade along with them. They mined so much of the jade in that place that now it's depleted from ancient times. In China, what we know about their jade culture is only from what they left behind in their graves. Their nephrite jade working tradition was of such high precision that they could fit several lines within 1 millimeter. J.M. Kaime showed us how big 1 millimeter is. 1 millimeter is really, really tiny. But the Liangzhu culture, when they carved, they were able to put several lines within 1 millimeter. Now, I just want to show you how they carved. Their technology is very different, and it's very important for us to understand that because that's something we will see later on. For example, in this jade, this nephrite jade artifact of the Liangzhu culture, there's this mask. I don't know if you can see it very clearly. There's a mask motif inside the back. Inside the mask, there's eyes. There's egg-shaped mask around what looks like eyes. And there's little carvings inside, which is like patterns. Those patterns look just like lines to the naked eye. But when you use a microscope or a magnifying glass, you will see this. Can you see this part over here? You will see that those fine lines are actually made up of finer lines finer microscopic lines, not straight like that, but drawn like this. And that's amazing. I mean, forgers cannot copy that today. We have no tool that can do that today. In fact, sorry. Did that, put it back on? Okay. In fact, Harvard researchers studying the Liangzhu culture, because when they dug up the Liangzhu culture artifacts, they were so shiny. The polish was still amazing. See, jade now, when they look so shiny, it's because it's either been laminated or they put some kind of wax on it or they make it shiny. But not when it's been buried for thousands of years. If it's been buried for thousands of years, any kind of coating will be taken off. But they were so shiny that the Harvard researchers checked them out and tested them. And as they went through several tests, they discovered that that marks our maritime industry. Around 2,200 BC in the Philippines. Remember, around 2,250 BC, the Liangzhu culture seemed to have disappeared in China. Suddenly, in the Philippines, around 2,250 BC, something like that, we find the sudden appearance of a fully formed jade culture that both worked and traded jade in a network of maritime nations. Nephrite was imported from Taiwan to the Philippines, where jade workshops crafted them into forms like the Lingling O or the bicephalous ornaments. This one over here is the Lingling O. The one on the other side is the bicephalous ornaments. These are testaments to our ancestors' maritime technologies. It's amazing because 2,000 years ago, when we're supposed to be in the Neolithic age, the waters were not causing us to be divided with the nations and with ourselves. The waters are our roads. The waters are the way that we connect. And so the waters linked us to Taiwan, Thailand, to Vietnam, Cambodia, Malaysia. We were all connected. And we went to Taiwan to get some green nephrite, the green nephrite that you saw, and then we saw it was brought to the Philippines. The Filipino crafted it, and we distributed it to different nations. We are an amazing people with an amazing history. And our technology in maritime and in different fields of arts and hydrological engineering, the more you find out about the Austronesian culture that's called the Liangzhu culture that left the lower Yangtze River area, you will realize what an amazing people our ancestors were. Okay, so now, this is and guys, unlike the Liangzhu culture site, where no jade working tool has been found, Otley Buyer has literally found thousands of nephrite tools here in Luzon. Nephrite tools. You know what? Bayer admitted that he was puzzled by the abundance of nephrite artifacts in a land where we have no natural source of nephrite yet found. There's nowhere we got it. A while ago, you saw the green nephrite. That's Fengshan jade. That's from Taiwan. That's something we imported from Taiwan. As of now, right now, I don't think anybody has still found the source of these thousands and thousands of white nephrite. In fact, Otley Buyer was saying, the age of this white nephrite is older than the green nephrite. We don't know where it came from. There is no source here in the Philippines. Maybe we can test it with what was depleted in that Yangtze River area. It should help. Otley Buyer said, this is something he wrote in the Philippine and East Asian Archaeology. This was in the 1940s. This is what he said. He said, the fully developed rectangular adze culture seems to have first entered Luzon in the Batangas area about the middle or the latter half of the 2nd millennium BC are tiny, right? And being carried by a people coming probably from South China or Indochina, and now, you know, we're thinking maybe there, much addicted to the use of nephrite. This culture, so he's saying, a culture that loves nephrite jade. A culture that really loves nephrite jade as a chief material for their stone artifacts. And he himself thought they either brought a large supply with them or found some local source not since rediscovered. We don't know where they got it from here, but they may have just brought it with them. Imagine the mighty ships that they had to carry loads and loads of this heavy nephrite material. So, it's amazing. Captain?
Actually, when we matched the structure in Manila Bay, we found 2 Liangzhu Culture, I asked Man, so what do you need to prove that Liangzhu Culture came here in the Philippines? Ang sabi niya, if we can find the artifacts that are most famous for them, like Kongs and Bai. So, bago sa pandinig ko yun, nakakayamang aminin kasi expertise namin is coins. So, sabi ko, ma'am, ano ba yung Kong? At ano ba yung Bai? Something like that. So, she explained to me na ganito, ganyan. After that, parang may naalala ako. You know, kasi I was a supplier in line of my business. I traveled from Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao. So, naalala ko yung isang matanda, part ng Southern Philippines. Sabi ko, parang may ganyan happen din na lagi ako bumibisita roon. So, I see to it na madadaanan ko yung matandang yon. And I found that kind of stones that usually ginagawa niya lang umbrella stand. So, kinunan ko kagad yung picture. And then, the next day, I sent it a message with a picture to Ma'am Ann. Sabi ko, Ma'am, eto ba yung Kong? Yun. Sabi ko sa kanya.
I couldn't believe it. Within the week, after I just described it to him with very little hope of finding anything. Because imagine finding nephrite jade na ganyan kalaki, and heavy, and big, and it's like, and I wonder if they'll ever be able to find, we don't really have, nobody's ever described it, but he said, Ma'am, parang, that farmer, parang, ginagamit niya ang umbrella stand, ma'am. And so I was like, yeah, maybe, you know. And within the week, he had 2 Kongs and several Bai discs. And a few months later, we found the Cheock, we found so much more Kongs and Bai discs. It is the Kasaysayan Hunters. I'm just amazed and I'm just proud to be with them. The Liangzhu Culture, or what we now know as the Austronesian artifacts, are actually here for your inspection. Downstairs at the 11th floor later on, you can actually check them. But so that you will be ready to check them and have some kind of knowledge that why are they not fake? Maybe they're fake, you know? And I want to explain to you so that you can be experts to explain that it is not. And this is why we think they are not fake. Okay. All the nephrite artifacts that you will see, all the nephrite artifacts that we have found that are in the forms and with the motifs of the Liangzhu culture, they all have evidence, internal evidence of antiquity. This is what you call happens to nephrite jade. See, nephrite jade is harder than most iron or steel, and they usually don't change for a very, very long time. But because of thousands of years, after thousands of years, certain things happen to them, especially if they've been buried and exposed to the elements. So there are things that happen, and these things that happen takes a long, long time because nephrite jade is very, very hard. So right here, by the way, the pictures I will show you are all from the artifacts that we have downstairs. So these are evidence of antiquity. You will find here, it's called dissolved pits. May butas-butas po. And inside the pits are crystals that have started to build up. These are not possible for forgers to make. They cannot put dissolved pits, they cannot put crystal build up there. Another thing that we find in all the artifacts is calcification. Calcification happens when the internally inside the jade, usually nephrite jade is pretty translucent, the very high quality ones. Now, they use high quality nephrite, but after thousands of years, you will find nagiging parang magatas siya. It becomes cloudy, and you can still see it inside. This calcification is proof of internal evidence of antiquity. Another thing is called this, the buildup. It's a additive crystals. I'm sorry. Did I just take it out again? Okay. These are additive crystals. Needle-like flat crystals that fabricate itself into the jade material itself. It's a new material. Hindi mo pwedeng kaskasin because it's already built in. It's the built-in material. And this takes thousands of years to build up. Also, we have what's called cleaving veins. If you see this, the veins, cleaving veins are different from percussion destruction, diba? Ang percussion, pag nabagsak mo, they crack. But cleaving veins are not formed by percussive accidents or whatever. They are formed through thousands of years. The nephrite starts to form cleaving veins inside. And if you run your fingers over it, there is no crack. It's just inside the translucent nephrite, you can see that it has started to form cleaving veins. And then, aside from that, this one's very nice for you to see. This is called micas, or exposure crystals. Exposure crystals form inside the jade after being buried for a very long time. So this is one of the evidences that it's been buried. Another evidence of burial for a very long time is Ruth Marx. Can you see the root marks over here? And there are root marks over there. When we have the root marks, underground plant root deterioration, this is also from being buried for a very long time. We have diffusive markings is another way. If you see the diffusive markings, over here we have black diffusive markings. That wasn't in the original nephrite when it started. But when after thousands of years of chemical interaction with the ground, it slowly changes from the temperature and everything. We have deterioration marks, we have differential weathering. All these are evidence, are all evident going over the forms and motifs, telling us that they aged after they had been made. Variations on the surface of the jade caused by disintegration covers even the carved surfaces. Now, another thing that we find, you can see those fine lines. This is magnified a lot. But all the fine lines are actually not straight lines. They didn't just carve it straight. It's all this way. They're made up of little tiny lines. Can you see over here? We didn't clean our artifacts. We kept them the way they were. So there's a lot of things that built up over here. But where it's not, you can see the fine lines. Can you guys see over there? And over here, you can see some of the fine lines at the end. It's clearer on this one. Can you see the fine lines? They're actually the artifacts downstairs. I brought along my magnifying glass. And you can use it to look at the artifacts and see close up that it's actually made in this manner. Another thing that's, the shine is amazing. It is something that you cannot do unless you laminate or wax it or something. And it hasn't been done that. And you can see that it's been buried. Also, we have the drill inside. In the ancient times,
Yes.
Captain, you explain nga.
Yes, ma'am. It's very scientific techniques, no? Because if you drill in one way hole lang, na the tendency of is pagdating sa dulo, sasabog yun o kaya masisira. That's why they drill the nephrite jade both sides, so they meet in the center, so hindi masisira yun. Kaya yung kasi kung one side lang pagdating sa dulo, masisira yun. Kasi weekend yung dulo na yung part. Unlike kung both sides magsasalubong ang pag-drill nun, matibay pa rin sa gitna. So, yun ang nakita kong dahilan kung bakit. Minsan, if you're going to see it, pero hindi pantay ang butas niya. Because, magkasalubong kasi yan knowingly that yung unang panahon, wala naman talagang ano eh, exact na ano eh, na mataang ginagamit lang na material nila, ano yung tinatawag, manual. They don't use mechanical system.
Yeah. All our holes for the cogs have this point where the two tubular drills met awkwardly in the middle. Because it's all mano-mano. It's all by hand. And during the ancient times, they'll meet in the middle and then they'll break off the excess. So now let us see some forms of the Liangzhu cultures. This is the Ye axe. The Liangzhu culture used the Ye axe not only as a tool, but also like the Western scepter. During the ancient times, this one is from the Philippines. It's a very traditional Liangzhu culture shape and methodology, and has all the internal evidence of antiquity. You can check it out downstairs later. This one is the Bai disc. The Bai disc is very Liangzhu culture. The scholars have all generally agree that the Liangzhu culture was the originators of the Bai and the Kong. And the Bai and the Kong became very important as a representative. Bai represented the heavens, the circle of the heavens, and that's how the ancient character was also drawn. Now, the Bai disc in the Philippines, the Liangzhu culture, are very, very beautiful. We have an amazing polish on both sides, and they're made in you can see the evidence of antiquity and the ancient tool marks on it. Then we also have, and so this is the thing that I really never expected to find, the Kongs. The Kongs are one of the trademarks of the Liangzhu culture. They're amazing Kongs. And imagine doing this without any modern tools. First of all, you get the nephrite, then you make this. This material is harder than most iron or steel. It's not like the easy, yung nadurog ni JM. This one is very, very hard to do. And so I said, I don't know if we can even find that here. We have found so many Kongs, and we have several on display downstairs. And the Kongs are beautiful. And they all have the Liangzhu culture motif. Not only that, you will observe the Liangzhu culture, like the Liangzhu culture challenge themselves mathematically even. Their Kongs are actually smaller at the bottom and bigger on the top. Imagine balancing that. Balancing the whole thing. Mathematically creating something that's 3D like that and making it smaller at the bottom, bigger at the top. Most forgers don't even know that. This is all the artifacts, all the Kongs that we found are true to every motif and form of the Liangzhu culture. What are the motifs? Let me show you some motifs. One of their favorite motifs is the mysterious beast motif, which is this one, that one drawing over there, and the god face motif. This one is the god face motif that looks like that over there. The god face motif can be used by itself. The mysterious beast motif can be used by itself, or it can also be used alternately or together like this. Another motif, this is very Liangzhu culture. If you look for Liangzhu culture artifacts like the Kong, this is usually always there. Either the mysterious beast, the god face, or both of them. And actually, sir, there was this, we recently visited a personal collection of a guy who collected some stuff from Thailand. And he had nephrite artifacts that had the god face motif on it. So, another variation of the god face motif is the spirit being motif. This is Liangzhu culture spirit being motif. With the god face motif, we have also found a lot of artifacts with these motifs. They also like to do birds, they also like to do fish, and we have that in many other artifacts, but we didn't bring any of those today. But what we have for you is the traditional trademark ones, which is the Ye axe, the Kong, and the Bai. And these three are, with all the motifs and all the forms, they are absolutely accurate. And we didn't buy anything we didn't get anything from professional antiquities dealers, no?
No.
All these things came from farmers and ordinary people who found them in their land. Some of them many decades ago, before any studies about the Liangzhu culture came out. So it is very highly unlikely that any of these farmers are swindlers. And so I just encourage you later to check out. Oo, even
Actually, we found a big dragon. The Chinese don't want to call it a big dragon. They call it a embryo dragon. My friend has a junk shop and called me, "Are you collecting this this one?" So I asked also ko to Miss Ma'am Joanna na kung ito po ba pamilya din po sa inyo? I said, "That's a big dragon." Wow.
Yeah.
So I'll give it, but not available now.
Oh yeah, it's not here. But the thing is, all of these are found in Luzon. And also the pig dragon is actually right here in Manila. It was just through ordinary people, construction workers who were digging canals or digging, fountains or whatever, and they find these things. In fact, when Captain Ed told me, "Oh, we found a pig dragon," he showed me the picture and I said, "Wait, that has to come with, that's a grave item. That has to come with dead people." He goes, "Yes. They actually told me there were several dead people with it. But they, and the church actually
Yes, yeah.
got the corpses." But I just want to encourage all of you, and I just want to honor Museo Maritimo for being daring enough to add the Kong, the Bai, and the Yeaks into their permanent collection.
Actually, if you were going to visit the churches in the Manila, you will find the lapida inside the church that there's a name of Chinese, there's a character of Chinese, something like that, na even in Binondo, Santa Cruz Church, makikita po ninyo. And we have a conclusion of that, so maybe for the next symposium, we will reveal ito kung ano po yung findings namin.
Yeah, so many people have been asking us, where can we see this for real? And now I am proud to be able to say Museo Maritimo, because that's part of our maritime heritage.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you so much.